It was a familiar drive for Janos Suber from his business in Newcastle to an appointment in Maitland along the busy Pacific Highway at Hexham. But there was nothing routine about what happened just before he passed the Hexham Bowling Club.
I'm travelling about no more than 70 kilometres an hour because I was kept in iron because it was too wet. And then next thing, I just got in a spin. I could have got a puncture, hit a oily patch, I don't know. Come across the medium strip, spinning several times. I don't know what hit me. All I could think is, well, some car's gonna collect me. And next thing I come right across here, hit the poster and in the river.
In a state of shock, he tried to open the door, but found the water had it jammed tight.
The car started sinking fairly fast. Got in towards the course of the centre, got out through the window and swam ashore.
Tow truck drivers rushed to the scene. One particularly keen for business stripped off and jumped in to try and locate the $20,000 Toyota Camry. But Mr. Suber was more concerned about irreplaceable business papers. Finally, it took a scuba diver and several attempts to retrieve the car, by then in a much worse state than its driver.
Oh, well, it's not much short of a miracle. It's a busy road here. He's only damaged one car, minor damage, and no one's injured. He wasn't injured himself. He apparently was a fair way out there in the water, and he managed to get out before the car completely sank. So it's according to the weather conditions, this sort of thing's likely to happen, but you would expect an injury, but he was lucky.
And just as lucky, those vital papers were amazingly intact. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News.
America's war against drugs has been spectacular to say the least. It's taken them from their own shores into Panama and other South American countries on the trail of the drug barons. But now the US Drug Enforcement Program is taking a second look at the battle. They've decided to move the front line back to the classroom.
The Los Angeles Police Department's Operation DARE is one model drug education program. It stresses role-playing, getting kids used to turning away offers of drugs.
Look, man, you better take it or else.
This report from the American Broadcasting Corporation certainly created interest among Australian police officers when NBN screened it at Newcastle Police Station. It's especially interesting to Constable Jo Watts. She's one of many officers studying a new drug education program at the Goulburn Police Academy. Within weeks, she'll be among the first to begin trial classroom lectures on drug abuse.
Prior to this, the policy was that we didn't go into the schools or in fact in the community and do any large-scale drug education programs, because to be able to do that you have to be qualified in a lot of areas, knowing about your drugs, the effects on people, the social attitudes, all the rest of it.
But will her class look like this?
I think our problems in Australia are on a far more social level. I'd be more inclined to be addressing the problems of alcohol and tobacco and the peer group pressure that goes along with that, because we do find that is our major problem out here, as against perhaps a much harder situation which the Americans face.
The message is already being taken to TAFE colleges by police, and the schools were the natural next step. They hope that by teaching children to respect legal drugs, they'll be prepared to confront illegal drugs before it comes to this.
Rain, hail or shine, Shane Harris, Troy Blatchford and Adrian Tobin want to prove they have what it takes to be champions.
Because we want to achieve goals and we like like to get medals at state and Australian titles.
You want to try and prove you're the best?
Yeah.
The boys from the Swansea, Belmont and Merewether clubs train 7 days a week, 4 hours a day. Part of a 32-strong New South Wales team, they'll be competing in swim, board and beach events. The juniors range in age from 10 to 13 years and are considered the nursery grounds for the Ironmen of the future.
In the brown and white corner, Tunks, Simmons and Kelly. In the blue and red corner, Sargent, Carter and Goulding. When the respective coaches Phil Gould and Alan McMahon let them go, stand back as sparks could fly. The two heavyweight packs are loaded to explode at Panther Park, and therein could lie the key to this match. But Penrith and Newcastle have underrated backlines that on their given day can take on and beat the best. Greg Alexander is a legitimate superstar of the league and is revelling in his new role as fullback. Alan McIndoe is one of the best finishers in rugby league, and with Chris Mortimer and Steve Carter controlling the scrum base, they form a deadly combination. The Knights hit the form button last week against West, with the forwards doing the damage, but when the backs were given their opportunity, they didn't let their teammates down. An in-form 5'8" Michael Hagan set up a couple of tries, and Tony Kemp had his best game for the Knights in attack and also defence. Glenn Frendo comes in for the injured Jeff Doyle. Gary Worth will also be keen to have a big game and impress the New South Wales selectors, who are already talking about Brandy Alexander as the state custodian, a spot that Worth wants himself. The young prop was seriously injured in the match against the Gold Coast a fortnight ago and was on a life support system. He regained consciousness yesterday, and even though he is still attached to a dialysis machine, doctors are hopeful about his chances. Professor Saxon White of the Human Physiology Department of the University of Newcastle explains that care must be taken to prevent heat stroke.
When we consider that a lot of the temperatures around and about even now are over 30 degrees in the air, then I think coaches, and most of them are well aware of it, coaches would be watching the conditions for heat stroke very carefully.
A full report on the effects of heat stroke on athletes in Newsnight tonight, with comments from Professor Saxon White, players and coaches.
Today was the anniversary of the 242-day siege, when Britain and Australian troops held back the might of Rommel's army. The offensive was a stopgap measure to give British soldiers a hold over Egypt. It was the first time a German force was defeated. More than 800 Australians lost their lives during that campaign. Today, those soldiers who survived marched in memory of their friends. In Civic Park, prayers were said and wreaths and books laid at the foot of the War Memorial. Also in Civic Park, the Palm Sunday Peace Rally. More than 300 members of Amnesty International, the United Nations Association and other concerned community groups marched from Pacific Park down Hunter Street, carrying placards calling for world harmony. Well-known activist Jack Mundy urged the gathering not to become lax in the face of improved relations between the superpowers, and called for the joining together of peace and environment groups.
I think the other most important thing is that the peace movement and the environment movement are coming together. And that's absolutely imperative if, in fact, humankind and other species have got a future.
Bed racing is all the rage in Sydney, but this is Newcastle's first dash for cash, a sprint from the Cambridge Hotel to the end of the street and back again. From 18 entries, the Castle Hotel and the University Rugby side fought it out for first place. University had all the vocal support, but the Castle had the strength, bringing the bed and its occupant across the line to pick up $1,000. third and fourth place was battled out between the Delaney Hotel and a second university side. But no matter how fast the runners are, it's the girl in the bed which makes the difference. One slip of the dummy and the race is over. The Cambridge Hotel will donate all the money raised to the Mater Hospital's Oncology unit.
Riverina's hooker Paul Danes got the first points of the match with a penalty goal, and Newcastle's Brian Quinton gave them the ball back immediately from the restart by kicking out on the full. Danes added another penalty and then scored a smart try.
So there's Boyd again, bounces off 2 tackles, slips the ball out to the number 2 in David Mitchell now. Can he go all the way? Gets the ball to Danes, and Danes is in the corner.
In the 24th minute, it was former North Sydney star Nigel Tate who made try number 2 for Riverina.
Tate makes the break now, makes a good break, gets the ball onto Mains. Mains storms up, turns it back inside to Danes. Danes outside to Charles. Charles, he's got the pace, he gets around the Newcastle defence and he will score for Riverina, and that's a very good try to the Riverina team.
Behind 18 points at the break, Newcastle came out firing and crossed 1 minute into the second half.
This will win, both of them now. Medlin up into the line. He sights a little gap, tries to get around the fullback. Ewings does so. Medlin now for the line. Medlin's going to score for Newcastle. Crosses, and Newcastle hit back.
4 minutes later, Phil Williams was unlucky not to score, and from the penalty given, Darren Ford took a quick tap and Big Steve Power was held up over the line. With time running out, the Newcastle team had one last desperate dip at victory.
Pensini did well to get around Danes. Gets the ball out now to Quinton, gets it back into Power. Power to Pensini. This is better from Newcastle. Pensini gets around the tackle. He's got Williams in support. Williams will go all the way and score for Newcastle, and that's a good try.
But it wasn't to be a day to celebrate for Newcastle, and Riverina, deserving winners 2012, will now contest the final. Noel Waite made the title his own the hard way. In the semi-final, he was behind 21-3, and after a short break due to rain, he came out and snatched a 31-29 win over Terry Harmer. His opponent in the final, Peter Monaghan, had it a little easier in the semi-final, beating Robert Thompson 31-9. In the final, it was even for a lot of the way, with both bowlers drawing beautifully. Waite kicked away in the middle stages, and from there on, he was never really pressured. He grabbed 4 shots on the final end to run out a comfortable winner, 31-22.
The Lord Mayor's admission that his earthquake appeal has struck problems came exactly 100 days after his city was ravaged by the quake. His words, mechanisms we have in place to manage our renewal process may be inadequate to the task. He went on to say the appeal had struck a hiatus period and was not going as smoothly as it should be. However, today he refused to agree it was a sign the appeal was a shambles.
It is not a shambles. The Family and Community Services have done a wonderful job under enormous difficulties. They have enormous calls upon their time and resources, and they must process all of those things and then pass it on to us. It is certainly not a shambles. We need flexible, open guidelines. We need them to be made public, and we need a proactive system, far more proactive than it is now. Now that disaster managers tell me is quite usual. After an earthquake, after any disaster, you need to sort out how to do these things.
In the weekend press appeared this ad seeking a fund manager. Outlined as his task was the ability to respond quickly to the needs of the community with good communication and public relations skills necessary. The salary on offer for the 12-month contract, $679 a week. Where will the money for his pay be coming from?
That will come out of our earthquake funds from state and federal government. It won't come out of the fund.
You didn't have any trouble securing the money for his pay from the government?
Oh no, that's been provided for right from day one. The Premier and the Prime Minister have been A1 at Lloyd's. They've been excellent.
It wasn't money that would have gone elsewhere?
I beg your pardon?
It wasn't money that would have gone elsewhere, his pay?
Oh no, it's got nothing to do with it. It's the disaster requires state and federal assistance, and that's been forthcoming right from day one.
But ironically, while our Lord Mayor has been forced to call for support to get his Lord Mayor's Quake appeal together, so too is he now relying on support to keep his family home standing. The McNaughton household has been declared unsafe as a result of the quake, and they're now facing the possibility they have to move out.
Didn't I just said, well, no, perhaps we'd better get these cracking around, the cracks out the back, we'd better get an engineer to look at it. And when he looked at it, he ordered us out of the place and we could fix it up.
You must have got a shock, did you?
Well, I got a shock because, quite frankly, for a fortnight I've been running around looking after everybody else and ignoring my own family. And I wasn't ignoring them, I just didn't see the need.
The McNaughtons have been advised to move themselves and all their possessions out as soon as possible while demolition work is carried out. So how long have you been living here?
20 years.
It's going to be hard to when you've got to bundle everything and walk out.
Yes, it's not going to be easy.
Today is the start of Black Friday Road Safety Week. The aim, to warn drivers planning Easter trips to beware potential killer hazards on the roads. Though poor road conditions caused by heavy rain and roadworks are major problems, driver fatigue could be the biggest killer as holiday traffic sets off on Friday the 13th. It's thought to be a factor in 30% of fatal crashes. Only last night an Australian athlete was paralysed in an accident that has been blamed on driver fatigue. Driver of this car, Damien Bailey, 19, of Tunambit, was returning from Taree at 11:30 along a notorious stretch of Pacific Highway at Karua. It's believed he fell asleep at the wheel, his car careering off the road at this junction with Mustons Road and smashing into a tree. One of his 3 passengers was 26-year-old Australian rowing champion Jane Spring. A fractured spine has left her paralysed. The driver escaped with only minor cuts.
The major concern is serious accidents involving people falling asleep at the wheel, or what's now referred to as driver fatigue, with people trying to rush to long distances after working or rushing to get their car packed. It is a major problem and it seems to be happening more and more regularly lately.
The New South Wales government and trucking industry have joined forces by displaying truck signs saying "Stop, Revive, Survive." They are helping promote new driver reviver stops to be set up throughout country New South Wales from Thursday. The marquees offering free coffee and a rest are now considered potential lifesavers. Since the earthquake last December, rows have been going on over the city's damaged heritage buildings and whether or not they should be demolished. But so far there have only been fragmented protests at buildings including Carrington Chambers. There has also been criticism of planning departments' delays in giving permission to demolish, with businesses being left on hold, sometimes for lengthy periods. But now the row looks like reaching ahead. 2 weeks ago, Alderman Don Geddy said in council he was planning a notice of motion to remove the planning department's powers over demolition. Though Lord Mayor John McNaughton dismissed this as nonsense today, Mr Geddy said merging planning with health and building is the only solution to greater efficiency.
I think the public generally wants the city rebuilt as quickly as possible and in a manner that's compatible with their views and thoughts. At the present time, I tend to think that we're procrastinating unduly, and I certainly don't accept that as a function that I'm going to accept as an alderman.
But Independent Alderman John Tate is putting his own motion to council tonight, asking that the planning department stay just as it is.
It's a technique of attempting to fossick out information But since the notice of motion has been submitted, I'm sure that there is going to be a move sometime within the next few months or few weeks for the planning department to be amalgamated with another department of council. Now, if that happens, it really diminishes the importance of planning in our city and in our local government area.
He says the planning department's caution over heritage buildings and its forward planning for the city is vital to Newcastle's recovery, and he said the building department would uphold the pro-development attitudes of only a few Novocastrians.
I'm quite certain that this issue will be one of the biggest issues that the community will face. I've had so much comment from people, from groups, individuals, and all sorts of people who are concerned about it. The thing is that this time not many people know about it, but those who are aware of it are very, very concerned. I believe they're at the stage of almost being incensed that this could be even thought of.
Alderman Tate says typical of the strongly divided views are the recommendations on the Donalds building on the corner of Tudor and Hamilton Streets. Newcastle Council will discuss this tonight. The planning department recommends that the building be saved, but the Town Clerk's Coordination Committee recommends demolition.
The Beechcraft Baron came down nose first when it clipped a power pole while approaching a runway. All those on board were pulled free from the wreckage. 2 are in a serious condition. The twin-engined plane was arriving after a flight from Albury. Meanwhile, a far happier end to another light plane incident in the Hunter today. A man and woman aboard this Victor Tourist single-engined aircraft escaped unharmed after being forced to make an emergency landing in a field little more than a kilometre from the Royal Newcastle Aero Club at Rutherford. The plane experienced engine trouble shortly after takeoff, with the pilot being forced to put it down in the waterlogged paddock. Despite becoming heavily bogged, the plane landed safely. It's believed the pilot is a member of the Aero Club. The Bureau of Air Safety has been called in to investigate the incident. Far from being a time of rest and relaxation, this Easter will be one of the toughest and most nerve-wracking times the 10 members of the Olympic long list will ever spend. All are competing in the international dressage competition at Lochinvar, knowing full well the eyes of the Olympic selectors are upon them, and their performances over the 3 days will decide whether or not they ride at Barcelona. On that list is Lochinvar rider Ros Ryan, who's one of the more highly fancied chances with her horse Sterling Symphony. The pair went round early in the day along with 8 other hopefuls, finishing equal 4th to another strong contender, Glenna Scott, aboard Livius 28. Ross backed up that fine performance a little later in the day with a strong ride aboard Sydney-owned Killabin Sunflower in the Prix St George. The 3-day competition, being held at the New South Wales Equestrian Centre, has attracted a strong lineup of world riders, including many from Asia and Europe. Several internationals are also among the judges, and all overseas riders are well aware a good performance for them over the next few days could also put them in good stead for an Olympic place. In all, the riders are competing in more than 9 sections, many of them on different horses in each event. All tickets to tomorrow's events have been sold, and organisers are tipping thousands will pour through the centre over the weekend to watch these world-class riders in action.